And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is James Harold Webb. He is the author of Redneck Resilience, and I'll give you just a quick overview on his bio because it's a pretty interesting entrepreneurial journey here. So, James started his career as a radiology tech in his home state of Mississippi. After moving to Dallas in 1983, he began working as the director of radiology at a local hospital. And for the next 13 years, worked on the executive team for various medical imaging companies. In 1996, Webb started the first of several companies and became a key leader in the industry. After more than 40 years in the medical field, he turned to focus on the fitness sector, becoming one of the largest Orange Theory fitness franchises in the country. He owned 33 of them. And I want to just dive in because he's got a great perspective and outlook on the world. So welcome, my redneck friend.
Thank you, buddy. Glad to see you.
So, you and I were chatting a week or two ago, and you're telling me your story, which is really, really interesting about sort of the entrepreneurial journey and all this sort of unexpected things that have happened in your life, both personally and professionally. And then the book on redneck resilience and all those sort of things was interesting as well, because one of the takeaways I had from our conversations was, yeah, and I know people underestimate me because I got the drawl and they think I'm a good old boy and all that. But the way you use that to your advantage, I love. Like, yeah, listen, you want to think I'm the dumbest guy in the room, good for you, but I'm going to eat your lunch. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, no, listen, I was just raised a little Southern kid in a small town with two high school students that got a little too friendly too early. And they were 17 years old when I was born, raised in the little country. And kind of grew up that way, kind of pushing being on my own. I referenced my first job at 5 years of age, having to make pot holders so we could sell them at the local church bazaar, put food on the table, and been going that way ever since. And went to the local junior college, borrowed $552 from the bank so I could go. And a little sign there said, interested in x-ray technology, called Liz Bush. And so I did. And 2.5 years later, I was an x-ray tech. And I will always laugh about the thing that caught my attention. It was the guy in the suit that came into our x-ray department.
Right.
Because he had on a suit. Nobody else did.
So he must have been doing something right, allegedly.
Yes, I realized he was the Kodak sales rep.
So isn't it almost the opposite now, where you get to a certain stage in your life and you're like, I'm only wearing a suit if it's a funeral or a wedding. I don't want to, I don't need to. And I get the choice of what I get to do, right?
Yeah, unless it's a funeral or wedding. I haven't wore a suit and I can't tell you when. And I haven't worn leather shoes in probably 10 years because I've got black tennis shoes and the whole bit.
Right.
So that was just kind of the thing that caught my attention and sent me down my path was, okay, I got to get a suit. I got to get educated to get a suit.
Right, exactly. So what is your definition of redneck resilience? Because resilience is resilience, right? And there's different flavors of that or variations on the theme. But in your world, how do you define redneck resilience?
Yeah, I want everybody to understand. I don't care if you're a redneck, a hillbilly, a country boy, wherever you come from, you have an opportunity. And I believe that resilience, it's not just about getting knocked down and getting back up. That's the standard definition.
Sure.
For me, resilience is about getting knocked down, getting back up, finding an alternative path. And I use the standard line, resilience finds a way. So for me, that's always been my journey was how many times I'd been knocked down, get back up, shift away from the guy with the suit and go a different direction. Shift away from the MRI business, go a different direction. So it's been a lot about getting knocked down, getting back up, and then finding different directions. The redneck part of it just says, hey, if I can do it, you can too.
So let me ask you this, James. There's probably a bit of a nature nurture piece to this, right? So some might argue, well, that's the way, James is just wired like this. He's one of those guys. He'll, make, lemonade out of lemons or whatever. How much of it is sort of innate versus how much of it is it something that you could teach to others or a capability that I can choose to develop in myself if I don't have enough resilience?
Yeah, I think it's a combination thereof. But for me, I had the greatest example of my two parents.
Mm-hmm.
My dad graduated high school, walked away from a college scholarship to play baseball so he could take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
worked 60 hours a week at 50 cents an hour. I watched him get knocked down 2 or 3 times. I watched him start his own business to only find out an accountant was skimming money and not paying the IRS.
Ooh,
Our
ouch.
thing got shut down. And I can remember as a high school kid, my dad saying, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to pay every penny back. And he did. Paid every penny to the IRS, even paid all the vendors he owed money to. My mom raised 3 kids, went back to nursing school, went and got a master's degree, then became a nurse practitioner. And I watched her just every night study until midnight. But there wasn't a day go by that we didn't have oatmeal and scrambled eggs or fried eggs on the table to get ready for school. I just learned that work ethic, so to speak, that
Yep.
resilience from those guys.
Well, and the perseverance, the idea, the importance of education, right?
Education was huge. I tell a story that my dad, when I graduated high school, I said, "Hey, Dad, can I go to work for you as an electrician?" He said, "No, I want you to go to school so you don't have to work for a living." And I didn't know what that meant until about 2002. I'm stuck on an overpass in Dallas, Texas, in an ice storm.
Mm-hmm.
I look down and I see a lineman climbing up a pole in the ice storm, and I go, "That's what my dad meant right there."
Exactly.
I'm in the car listening to music. That dude's climbing a pole in an ice storm.
So with all that you have and had going on, entrepreneurially, business wise, starting businesses, the Orange Theories, etc., what made you wake up one day and say, I think there's a book here? And tell us a little bit about that journey, because that's often if there's a place to show your resilience, it's in the journey of writing and publishing a book.
Yeah, it was interesting. A lot of people said, "Hey, you need to write a book." And at first, your ego kind of goes, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." But over time, you start thinking about it, and particularly when you have 5 children and you're raising them, and you want to pass along these lessons to your children and to your employees and things. That was sort of the driving force at the very end. Was okay. A lot of people think I have an interesting story. Maybe I have an interesting story. Let me dig into it.
Was it the legacy? I mean, was it? So I want to talk a little bit about the book, because there's lots of reasons to write a book. Ego could be one, nothing wrong with that. Legacy could be one. A forcing mechanism to get your thoughts down in a way that are transferable to others in a clear way. Build your brand, grow your business, deal flow. Like, what were and maybe you didn't think about it up front, but what do you think for you the primary reasons were for putting the book out?
Yeah, there's not a question in mine. It was legacy. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't interested in becoming a consultant. I wasn't interested in becoming a speaker. I mean, I'm doing that now and it's kind of fun, but that wasn't my objective. I wasn't growing my business. I'm winding down things now as I've gotten older. And so for me, it was about getting all this down on paper so my kids, other people could see it. And again, it goes back to that. If this little redneck country boy from Laurel, Mississippi can do this, so can you.
So I love that. So if someone were to read the book, what were you, and you were to email them or bump into them somewhere and say, what are the 3 things you walked away from the book? What would you hope they would tell you?
Yeah, I think number one, it was a fun read. I've had so many people tell me
Okay.
it's just such a fun read. So that egotistically makes me feel good. At least it came out nice and people are enjoying reading it. Lesson number two is that single line I've always used: resilience finds a way. Getting knocked down and back up is easy for me. It's not getting knocked down again. It's going a different direction. It's finding a way around the obstacle. And that's really what I hope people pick up on it. And then three, I talk a lot about my management style, and it's called contingency management.
Mm-hmm.
How I manage the situation. Sometimes you have to be theory X and be the boss, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to be theory Y and let the employees move on in their direction. But I'm a huge believer in that middle level contingency management. Talk a lot about that in here.
That's great. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. Share with us, if you would, when you and I were talking a week or two ago, you had shared some of the things that happened that you clearly needed resilience for on the personal side. We're focusing on the business, but I want to get sort of, because I came away from that conversation really thinking about sort of the holistic piece. Because, listen, going bankrupt and coming back, and not that that's a wonderful thing to do, but a lot of people have done that. You've had situations where you've clearly needed to be resilient on the personal side as well. Obviously, growing up in Mississippi. But you want to share a little bit of that for color and background?
Yeah, I think the several stories that come to mind are I call it waking up with blood on the pillow, and
Mm-hmm.
not realizing that I had some tumors in my brain and they were bleeding away, and had to have surgery. And fortunately, they were benign and everything was fine. But it cost me a year of college and I had to start all over. But the biggest one, and you and I spoke about this one, was my wife, Marcia. And, we're sitting in the first class seat of the plane, drinking a bottle of champagne, thinking we are top of the world. And she says, I have a stomach ache. And we stop at the local doctor. And 36 hours later, confirmed diagnosis, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Just no signs, no symptoms, no nothing. And I'm an x-ray tech. And so when I saw those pictures, those images, I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And the resilience part really kicks in when on May 20th of that year, about 6 months later, she's dismissed from MD Anderson. And on that exact same day, I'm diagnosed with stage 3 renal cancer. And so I've got a wife dying in my hands, and I've got to make decisions on my own. And I think the toughest decision I probably ever had to make was telling a doctor I'm not going to do chemotherapy or radiation. Just cut me open, take it out. I got to go take care of her. And they did. And I walked out of the hospital in 19 hours and went home to take care of my wife. And she made it 6 more days. And then I took care of my little boys, and spent a lot of time with them that summer, getting myself back together, finding a new path. And I did. I'm not one to look back a lot. And I found a new path and went forward.
So I would imagine, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, that after living through those sort of tragedies, even one of those, but you just put out multiple, right, in a short period of time. People, it's interesting in the business, you ask people what's going on, and they're so stressed. They're so stressed. What are you so stressed about? Oh, I got a client and I got to renew this contract and I'm asking for a 2% increase year over year and I can't split it. And then you're like, like, you think that's worth stress? So how has that changed your perspective of what really is a problem and what you're making into a problem versus that's something you got to do at 2:00 on a Tuesday?
Yeah, that's a great question, because my life definitely changed in terms of what were problems and not problems. I'm much lower key now. I try to define my intensity moments. Like today. Today's a busy day for me. So I got in the office at 7 from traveling last night all the way from the Caribbean to get here, and shut the door and said, okay, I'm going to work for the next 8 hours. Nobody's going to bother me. I'm just going to go hardcore. 5 o'clock, I'll open that door. I'll take a deep breath. It takes me about 20 minutes to relax. And then I'm going to go be dad and go see my grandson's birthday and hang out with my family. And
Right.
that's what's really important. That's what's important.
And I would imagine there's probably not much that can happen during those 8 hours that's going to prevent you from doing what you want to do at 5 o'clock and go see your grandkids.
Not a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So what would you say? And some people through misfortune or just whatever haven't needed to be particularly resilient. Things have gone as planned. I don't know a lot of those people, but there are some where they've got their 10-year plan and they're a year, 8, month 3, day 2, hour 1, and they're like right on track. What would you say to people that haven't needed to be resilient before?
Listen, I'm happy for them. Congratulations. And not a lot you could say, and we all know those people. And what I find sometimes, personality-wise, is they get a little bit affected, a little bit caught up in themselves. They haven't faced adversity. They haven't dealt with the normal human beings out there. But I've also met a lot of nice ones, and I'm just happy for them. Okay, good. Now, what are you going to do with all this money? What are you going to do with all your time? And that's kind of the next question in life is, what are you going to do now?
Right. Well, some of it is a little bit of, well, get over yourself, right?
You meet those guys. You do. We've all met them.
Cool. Well, this has been great. Any thoughts or advice you would have on someone else's that's out there and people have thrown that statement at them, because I've heard this many times before, you should write a book, right? And there are a lot of people out there listening that either laugh at that because they've been told that many times, or cringe at that because that started them down the path of writing the books and thought leadership. So how would you suggest people sort of respond to that or reflect on that or react to that?
I just had a gentleman ask me that literally 2 days ago. He says, people have been telling me I should write a book. What should I do? I said, why don't you just start with putting your thoughts down on paper? Just take an hour a day, 30 minutes a day, jot your thoughts down, put them in alphabetical order, date order. I don't care.
Right.
Just put your thoughts in there, and then see if it meshes, see if it makes sense. But for me, it was literally just started writing little notes and remembering little stories. And I've already got a box full of other notes I've written about other little stories I haven't told.
Right. And you can do that in any way you want. It doesn't have to be linear or an official outline. It could just be compiling a bunch of anecdotes that represent this thought or the stories that got you through here. Right. So people, I like your pieces. Well, just start, just do it for half an hour a day. Right.
Yeah, mine was a drawer in my desk. I literally would write notes and shove it in a drawer in my desk. And then after about a year, I pulled them all out and started reading some of them. Well, that was kind of a cool thought, or, that's not very good. And so that's how it started for me.
There you go. Well, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your time and sharing your story and your shining example of resilience in all aspects of your life. So thank you for sharing it with us today,
Brother,
James.
thank you so much. It's a real pleasure.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.